Alrighty, guys. Since we've been talking so much about safety this last week, even though I know we haven't gotten to actually start any labs, we want to be prepared so the second we get back to school, we can actually get going on those. So we're going to talk real quick about common lab accidents and what we can do to prevent them. So one of the most common lab accidents, as I move myself around the screen so you can see, is fire. So obviously we know fire starts when you're misusing something that involves flame. Maybe it catches a piece of paper on fire. It can very quickly spread. It can quickly become an issue. The easiest way to prevent this is when we're handling fire, even if it's the teeniest, tiniest amount, then we need to be aware that it can catch everything on fire. In worst case scenario, we have to know where our fire extinguishers are, which in my classroom, they are located right at the front door. Next one we are talking about goes pretty closely with fire. It is heat burns. And you can't see the whole word, but heat burns can occur anytime you touch something hot. If you guys, for the girls in the class, or maybe if you guys have two, if you've ever straightened or curled your hair and you touch the end of your curling iron and it burns your hand, that is a heat burn. One of the most common ways this happens in a lab is we are heating something up. So let's say I've got this beaker over a flame. It's getting really hot. It's been sitting on the metal stand. And now it's time to start cleaning up. So what do? I just grab it. And it's burning hot. So what's going to happen? I'm going to get a heat burn on my hands. So the most important thing to do to prevent this is know if something can be hot. Always treat it like it's going to be hot. So even if my beaker's been sitting on the stand cooling for 5-10 minutes now, before I just go grabbing for it, I'm going to, lightly tap it and be like, is it hot? Can I grab it before I just pick it up and burn my fingers? If you ever do have something like a heat burn, most important thing to do would be to let me know so you can get to the nurse and get that taken care of. Our next common issue is chemical burns, which similarly to heat burns can be avoided just by some basic safety procedures and paying close attention. So anytime we're working with a chemical, even if it's something that's household and common, we still want to use every kind of protection because honestly, you don't know. You could be allergic to that, and our skin is extremely absorptive. So even if you get the smallest amount of something on your hand, wash it off right away. Some of that has still been absorbed into your skin. So the easiest way to avoid it, anytime we're working with any sort of chemical, wear gloves. And your gloves should fit well. They shouldn't be dangling all over the place. You shouldn't have an extra 1.5 feet on your finger. You should fit your hand well. Be nice and secure around your wrist. And anytime I'm dealing with any sort of chemical, I'm going to have gloves on my hand. Our next common one is cuts and scrapes. So in the lab setting, we are going to be using a lot of tools that have the potential to cut. So one of the most common, I would say, would be our scalpel. So when you're looking at your scalpel, you've obviously got a very sharp blade on the end. And then back here is the handle. So let's think about it. Which end should we pick up our scalpel from? Probably not our sharp end right here. We should always pick it up from the handle. And when we're carrying it, imagine it like a kitchen knife or anything else, facing down. So if you drop it, it is not going to be near you. Also, closed-toed shoes are big in this one. So say I'm carrying my scalpel, I've got it in front of me. It's facing down, so it's not going to hurt anybody, and I happen to drop it. If I have sneakers or boots or any other closed-toed shoe on, might bounce off my foot, I'll pick it up, no big deal. If I've got flip-flops or Jesus sandals or something else on, I'm going to cut my foot, and then I'm going to have to either put on a Band-Aid, go to the nurse, and it's going to be a whole ordeal. So making sure we're wearing closed-toed shoes and we're carrying things from the proper portion on them is going to be the biggest thing that we can do to avoid cuts and scrapes in the lab. The next one is pretty big. It is contamination. So when we're talking about contamination, the easiest way I can show you. So let's say we have everybody's favorite glitter, and I need to mix a solution with glitter. So I'm going to fill it up, mix it around. Oh, look, it's so pretty. Do my lab. And now it's time to clean it all up. So I'm going to pour my glitter out and just put my beaker away. What do you think the odds are that my beaker is actually clean? Slim to none. So when you have a solution and you just dump it out, your beaker is not clean, or your test tube or whatever that solution was in. All that residue is still stuck inside of it, and when the next person puts a different chemical in, they're going to mix, which can very often be deadly. Even common household chemicals, you mix the wrong ones and you can make a deadly gas. So taking the time to actually rinse your container and clean it properly is one of the most important things we can do to prevent contamination. Next, we have inhalation. So when we're inhaling something, a lot of times we're working with chemicals that we do want to know the smell of, because that's an important factor when we're judging stuff. But I should never take it and just sniff it, because who knows, maybe that's going to knock me out. Different chemicals have different effects on people. So when we're trying to get the odor of a chemical, we're going to waft it, which if you guys have already watched the other video, then you know that you should always hold it back, take your hand, and just waft the smell towards you. If it's a strong odor that you need to know, believe me, you're going to be able to smell it like that. If you can't smell it like that, then I would consider it odorless. And one of our last ones are spills and breakages. So it's going to happen. You're going to spill stuff, and stuff is probably going to break from time to time. The biggest way to prevent it is just be aware of your surroundings, have 100% focus on your lab at all times, and when it does happen, because it will, let me know. Don't just sit there and try to cover it up, try to scrape up the broken glass with your hands. Let me know. We'll get a broom, we'll get a dustpan, we'll get what properly will clean up the chemical. If it's just water, it might be a rag. If it's something more potent, then we might have special procedures we need to follow to make sure it's properly cleaned up. So if you have a spill or if something breaks, don't panic, don't try to hide it, but just let me know so we can get that taken care of. And that's pretty much our brief overview of common lab accidents. We're going to be going over safety again and taking our quiz at the end of this week. So review those notes, study, and can't wait to see you guys in class.